Hey there. Tonight we're setting out on a slow, peaceful journey. Imagine this. Soft twilight drapes over an ancient Roman city, like a silk sheet drawn across a sleeping world. You walk gently along a winding cobblestone path, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Cool, dry air carries the scent of olives and warm earth, while low-hung lanterns sway gently, casting golden halos onto sandstone walls. The road ahead isn't rushed. It meanders, just as your thoughts begin to. Each step you take sounds faint and hollow against the stones, as if echoing the slow heartbeat of the city. Somewhere nearby, a fountain trickle sits, voice soft and steady, like an old friend whispering you home. You pass a quiet garden lined with cypress trees, their tips silhouetted against the last blush of the sky. A cat lounges atop a sun-warmed wall, tail twitching lazily. Above, a few early stars begin to shimmer, diffused slightly by the gauze of rising bathhouse steam in the distance. The air grows warmer as you near the entrance. And let's be honest, even finding the comfiest pillow doesn't guarantee you'll stay awake for this. So, before you fully relax, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this peaceful corner of the internet. Feel free to leave a comment with your location and local time. It's always wonderful knowing where we're drifting off together from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's drift gently into tonight's story together. You step beneath a high archway framed by vines of jasmine. The petals gleam white in the lantern light. The stone beneath your sandals is warm from the day's sun, still holding onto the heat like a memory. You pause for a moment, letting your hand brush the wall. It's cool now, faintly rough, and speckled with small imperfections like the oldest stories. It holds the beauty of age. Inside, the hush wraps around you like a soft woolen blanket. The front atrium opens like a calming sigh, wide and high-ceilinged, with frescoes faded to gentle pastels. You see others moving, about not rushed, not loud, just gliding. Gentle conversation flows like a breeze in the background. You catch snippets of talk about the weather, someone's dog who refuses to stop digging up flower beds, and what sort of fish might be served with bread tomorrow. There's something timeless about the scene. Nothing important is happening, and yet it all feels quietly sacred. A soft-robed attendant greets you without speaking, offering a shallow bow and a faint smile. He motions toward the changing area. You follow, your footsteps muffled now by thick mats. The air grows denser with warmth and moisture. The scent shifts cedar, lavender, a trace of beeswax candles. You place your simple garments in a woven basket and wrap yourself in a linen sheet. It's soft and dry, like sun-bleached cotton left to rest in a windowsill. Even the act of folding clothes here feels slow, deliberate, an invitation to shed not only your attire but the little tensions of the day. Moving forward, you pass through a heavy arch of tufa stone, the entryway into the tepidarium, the warm bath chamber. It embraces you like a favorite blanket. Steam laces the air, rising in slow coils from a shallow pool that gleams like amber under oil lamps. The light here is low and soft, clinging to the air as if reluctant to move. It flickers gently across the damp walls, making everything appear to breathe. You settle onto a smooth bench, carved from marble cool at first, then gradually giving way to the warmth of your body. The stone feels alive in its own quiet way, and behind you, another fountain murmurs softly, feeding the shallow waters with rhythmic drops. There are others around you, all quiet, some alone in their thoughts, others leaning in for muted conversations. A woman carefully smooths her linen wrap, her eyes watching the reflection of the flames ripple in the water. Two older men play a quiet game, not with dice or words, but with pebbles, You watch them for a moment. They have small leather pouches tied at their waists, each holding a handful of worn, polished stones. They place them slowly on the marble bench between themen by one. No rush, no score. They create a pattern, a spiral, it seems. Or is it a flower? It's not entirely clear what the rules are, if there are rules at all. Maybe that's the point. It isn't a competition. It's a ritual, a quiet art of placing something down and letting it stay. Centuries ago, these bathhouses weren't just for bathing, they were for being. Scholars believe the pebble games came from boredom, perhaps, or perhaps from the joy of repetitive, meditative motion. No one really knows, and maybe that's why it endures and whispers across time. You run your fingers along the nearest marble ledge. It's cool, wet in places, but smooth-weathered not by water alone, but by thousands of hands just like yours. Fingers once paused here to rest, to reflect, or to trace meaningless patterns for no one but themselves. There's something wonderfully whimsical in knowing that pebbles, those most mundane of things once, served as tools of tranquility. Some say children played pebble games in the streets. Others say philosophers used them for counting or memorizing verses. But here, in this quiet, steam-filled chamber, they become tiny meditations. A young boy nearby places a line of 4 pebbles on the floor, then rearranges them. He smiles to himself, then starts again. His mother watches with a faint, drowsy pride. And you? You find yourself wondering which pebble you'd choose. Perhaps the white-veined one shaped like a bean, or the perfectly round one that fits in the hollow of your palm. As you lean back, letting your shoulders soften, a gentle warmth seeps into your skin. Muscles you didn't know were tense begin to sigh. The background sounds blend. The steady drip of water, the rustle of linen, the rhythmic tap of a pebble meeting stone. There's no hurry here. Nothing to finish. No prize to win. You close your eyes for a moment. Not to sleep. Not yet. Just to listen. To the small, ancient game being played in a bathhouse long ago, and yet somehow still happening right now, right here with you. You shift slightly on the marble bench, the linen wrap slipping softly across your skin. The tepidarium holds you now, like warm water in the cupped hands of time. There's no need to move yet. Just breathe. Let the air moist and fragrant fill your chest like the gentle rise of a slow tide. You begin to notice the subtle architecture. Roman builders favored symmetry, but here it feels more like a lullaby carved into stone. The arches curve like the inside of a seashell. The walls carry mosaics, but not ones that shout for your attention. These are faded. Dusty blues, softened ochres, the occasional flicker of gold. Dolphins leap in loops across the tile work, their smiles eternal. Wreaths of laurel wind like vines along the ceiling. The water in the center pool steams steadily, a bath made not for scrubbing, but for existing. You dip your toes into it, then your legs, and at last, your whole self. It envelopes you with the gentle warmth of a baked stone on a summer day. The temperature isn't shocking, it's comfort in liquid form. Time slows further. You float, barely moving. Only your breath gives you away. In, out. A ripple. A pause. The conversation around you remains hushed, a tapestry of quiet tones and ancient vowels. You catch Latin words here and there, but the meaning feels less important than the rhythm. Like the soft rustle of wind through olive trees, or the distant murmur of sea foam against sand. A steward walks past, balancing a wide wooden bowl filled with bundles of herbs, rosemary, sage, thyme. Their fragrance leaves a trail in the air, earthy and familiar. He places them in a corner of the room, where warm water will coax out their scents. They will be added to the next bath, slowly infusing it like a patient tea. Someone nearby chuckles softly. You glance over and see an elderly man, eyes closed, leaning against the wall. He's wearing only a slight smile, lips parted just enough to show a missing tooth. He seems utterly at peace. It occurs to you that this room has witnessed countless such smiles. Thousands of shoulders lowered in relief, endless sighs. It's a place built not for ceremony, but for return. The pebbles come into your thoughts again. Across the way, a girl arranges 5 stones in a circle, then sets a 6th at the center. She frowns, shifts one a bit, then nods to herself and lets her hand drop away. Her brother copies her work. Not perfectly, not quite, but close enough that you can sense the shared language between thema, quiet, rhythm, a whispered understanding passed without words. Bathhouses like this one, historians say, were as much community centers as they were places to clean the skin. People came to share news, to see who had grown a beard since last week, to feel the comfort of repetition. And Pebbles, those humble little things, offered the perfect blend of presence and purpose. Some Romans used them as counters for friendly wagers who could hold their breath the longest or recall the most lines of a poem. Others used them to reflect on decisions, laying out patterns to guide their thoughts like a visual meditation. There's even mention in a half-cracked scroll of a senator who used pebbles to guess the number of figs in a jar. You can't help but smile at that. A fig-guessing game in a marble bath. Whimsical, and somehow deeply human. And then there's the bath itself, the tepidarium. Neither hot nor cold, just right. It exists between extremes, a gentle middle ground, not too stimulating, not too sedating. The warm pause, before the plunge or the heat. You can see why this is where the pebble games happen. It's a room made for lingering. From above, shafts of lantern light filter through small windows, painting long stripes across the rising steam. Dust motes drift in slow motion, like golden snowflakes that forgot how to fall. The atmosphere hums with tranquility. You notice a small alcove carved into the wall, half shaded, almost forgotten. Inside rests a low stone shelf with tiny objects. A feather, a ring of bronze, a folded piece of parchment that time has chewed at the edges, and, of course, a pebble black and glossy like river glass. Offerings, perhaps, or keepsakes, or just things someone wanted to remember and so they left them there under the hush of warm steam. You lean back again, letting the water support your spine. The linen wrap floats around you, gently blooming like a lazy lily in spring, and the air hums. A scholar once wrote that the Roman bath was the closest the empire ever came to inventing stillness. Not conquest, not politics, but shared silence. They may have built roads and aqueducts, but they also built places where nothing happened, and those became sacred in their own quiet way. You think again of the pebble spirals, of how the bathers aren't solving problems or seeking achievement. They're just being, allowing their hands to move slowly, with purpose but no pressure. The warm water rocks you slightly as someone enters the pool nearby. They move with care, not to disturb the balance. This isn't a place for splashing or fast movements. Even the ripple they cause feels apologetic, soon stilled by time. You begin to lose track of how long you've been here. 10 minutes? An hour? It doesn't matter. The walls don't keep track. They've seen entire empires rise and fall while holding their breath beneath a single drop of condensation. Outside, the world continues. Markets close. Torches are lit. Carts rattle along stone streets. But in here, there is only one moment, stretching slowly and gently like dough under the hands of a baker. Eventually, you rise from the water, stepping out with care. The stone beneath your feet is warmer than before, kissed by heat rising from the hidden furnace below. You reach for a fresh linen cloth, soft as a dove's wing, and wrap yourself again. In the corner, an attendant sets down a small bowl of grapes and sliced figs. Another bather chuckles and asks if the figs were counted with pebbles. A few heads nod in appreciation, too relaxed to laugh. And as you sit again by the edge of the pool, your skin still glistening, you see someone lay down their last pebble with great care. It's a small reddish stone, flat and chipped at one corner, but it's placed with the delicacy of a signature. It doesn't mean anything, really, and yet, somehow, it means everything. That small act, the simple placing of a pebble on warm marble is enough. You breathe in again. Steam, herbs, linen, and the scent of memory. The room quiets even more, as if it knows you're not quite ready to leave, but also not far from drifting. The hush of the tepidarium clings to your skin like a fine mist. Every surface glows faintly in the warm, golden light. And you remain there, still and weightless in your thoughts, until the quiet rhythm of pebbles draws you gently toward the next moment. A young steward glides by, balancing a wooden tray with more pouches of stones different shapes, sizes, and colors. Some worn smooth like river glass, others speckled with faint mineral patterns that look like tiny maps. Each one is a silent invitation. You follow, barefoot and wrapped in linen, down a narrow corridor where the air shifts. It's warmer here, and you can hear the echoes of soft laughter and a splash or two ahead. The hallway opens into a circular, roomless, ornate, more intimate. This, you realize, is the Pebble Room. It isn't marked as such, but you know it by the scattered shapes across the benches and the quiet way bathers move hair-intentional. Slow, yet relaxed. Like a soft-spoken ritual performed 100 times before. Marble benches circle the edge, wide enough for sitting or reclining. Each station has a shallow groove carved into the surface, perfectly suited for arranging things small and precious. And so they go placing pebbles one by one. An elderly woman nearby lays hers in a spiral. She starts at the center and works outward, hands steady. Her stones are uniform gray and round, each one the size of a hazelnut. Across from her, a younger man makes a starburst of jagged white ones. Their eyes never meet. There's no competition, just creation. You choose a place by a window slit where the breeze curls in softly, brushing against your cheek like the wing of a sleepy bird. A small pouch rests there, already perhaps left behind, perhaps meant for you. You tip it over, and the stones tumble out with the quietest clatter, soft, muted, like rain on parchment. There are 7 pebbles, each one different. One is jade green. Another looks like a miniature loaf of bread. One has a faint shimmer, like quartz dust beneath its skin. You begin placing them on the Gruveno reason, no plan. Just letting your fingers speak in a slow rhythm. This was how time passed, here in the Roman bathhouses, not with hourglasses or bells, but through subtle acts of intentional stillness. One curious inscription from an ancient wall reads, "I lost track of the day and gained it back pebble by pebble." Was it a poem? A joke? A mantra? No one knows. But its message lingers. You find yourself making a simple triangle with your stones. It feels satisfying. Complete. Then you shift one to the side. Now it looks like a sailboat, a tiny voyage across smooth stone. To your left, a child is counting out her pebbles in Latin, whispering the numbers with the seriousness of a philosopher. Unus, duo, tres. Her father listens with mock gravity and nods at each one. She beams, then starts over, arranging them into the shape of a small fish. Romans, you recall, were known for games, but not just those of combat or sport. Quiet games thrived, 2 games of balance, repetition, rhythm, the kinds that asked nothing of you but presence. The pebble games fit perfectly into this world. No rules needed, just a willingness to be. Some historians believe soldiers carried pebbles for luck or for calming their nerves before battle. Others suggest lovers gave each other painted stones inscribed with initials or secret marks. Most agree, however, that in the baths, the pebble's role was pure simplicity. It gave the hands something gentle to do while the mind floated free. A nearby bather has created a circle of pebbles, each one touched with a different color-faint reds, dusty blues, chalky whites. As he finishes, he places a single, pale yellow stone in the center. He regards it for a long moment, then exhales, long and slow. And you find yourself wondering, was there something he let go of in that breath? You look down at your own work, now a kind of flower, accidental but lovely. You shift a pebble slightly, and it changes again. A star? A shield? You decide to stop moving it, to let it be exactly as it is. A moment, captured in stone. The breeze shifts, carrying in the scent of fresh herbs, lavender, perhaps, or something subtler, and then a low, resonant sound hums through the walls. A water wheel turning, a distant gong, or maybe it's just the wind speaking Roman through ancient vents. Even the feel-good whimsy of this place begins to settle in your bones. The quiet jokes passed between bathers about how long their pebble spirals will last. One woman claims hers survived 4 steams and 2 cleaning cycles. Another shrugs, saying his were knocked over by a curious cat who wandered in one evening. Laughter is soft, unhurried. You lie back against the warm marble, letting your fingers trail across the pebbles, each one smooth, cool, real, anchoring you softly to the here and now. And yet there's something dreamy in all of this. Scholars still wonder why the tradition of pebble games disappeared from bathhouses. Perhaps it faded with the fall of the Roman Empire, or perhaps it just stopped being needed, replaced by other pastimes, other distractions. But that slow magic of arranging the world in small, quiet shapes never really vanished. You see it in the way people doodle in notebooks, in how they arrange tea leaves in the bottom of a cup, in the way a child lines up seashells on a beach just to see them there. Even now, in this imagined return, the pebble patterns remind you of something gentle and deeply rooted. A truth that doesn't shout, that the act of paying calm attention to small things can be its own kind of peace. You gather your stones again, slowly, placing them back in the pouch with reverence. Each one makes a soft tick as it touches the next, like faint stars coming into alignment. Before leaving, you set one stone aside on the bench. Not for you, not for anyone in particular, just for the room. You stand, stretch slowly, and make your way back into the tepidarium. The warmth welcomes you like a returning friend. No one seems to notice your arrival, and yet somehow it feels like the space breathes easier because you've returned. There is a quiet knowing here that everything, every moment, every stone, every shared breath is part of a rhythm older than memory. And still, the water sings its lullaby. You linger for a moment just outside the pebble room, your palm resting against the smooth column that marks the threshold. It hums faintly with warmth, like the last light held in the skin of an orange after sunset. A gentle current of air brushes against your face, carrying with it the subtle scent of warm limestone and rosemary. You follow the sound of water familiar, soft, like the memory of a quiet stream. Down another corridor, torchlight flickers against walls tinted with age. Your bare feet kiss the floor in a slow rhythm, and ahead, the gentle sound of dripping becomes more pronounced, layered with hushed voices and a chorus of falling water. You emerge into a broader chamber, less intimate than the last, but no less calming. A central fountain bubbles steadily, its water cascading over concentric marble rings into a shallow basin. Beyond it, a long pool reflects the soft light of oil lamps hanging above each flame, dancing behind a delicate glass shade, trembling just enough to cast playful shadows. Here in this open room, sound becomes story. You pause and listen. It's not just water, not just voices. It's something to pair a symphony of stillness. Every drop and whisper forms a rhythm that needs no composer. You hear it in layers. A slow trickle from a copper spout into a stone bowl. The distant rustle of robes being adjusted. A soft sigh from a nearby bather. The faint clink of a pebble tapping the edge of marble. None of it intrudes. It folds around you like a lullaby that has no beginning and no end. You take a seat beside the fountain and trail your fingers through the water. It's warm, just above body temperature, and flows over your hand like liquid velvet. You close your eyes. Around you, the soundscape builds and recedes, like a tide brushing gently against a quiet beach. Romans were great engineers, but even greater listeners. They believed in aural balance spaces where acoustics enhanced not grandeur, but peace. This room is shaped like a shallow dome, and if you sit just sois, right there you can hear everything as if it's closer than it is. A soft echo follows each word, not sharp, not jarring. Just enough to remind you that you're inside something old and tender. There's a niche in the wall where a small stream runs continuously, a little waterfall that feeds a lower basin. Beside it, a woman sits with her eyes closed, her hand cupped beneath the falling water. She lets it fill slowly, then trickle through her fingers like sand, over and over again. You watch the loop, feeling its rhythm soothe your mind. Even that small motion becomes part of the room's gentle music. Someone stirs tea nearby. You can't see it, but you know it by the swirl of a ceramic spoon and the faint scent of mint wafting into the air. There's a table somewhere in a corner, nothing grand, just a place where bathers sip warm herb infusions between their soaks. Your thoughts drift to the way sound carries in water, how whispers are louder, how movement becomes music. Once, it's said, a Roman philosopher visited a bathhouse not for hygiene, but for listening. He brought no towel, no oils, just a scroll and a stylus. He sat for hours, recording the rhythm of the fountain and the cadence of voices. His writings were lost, of course. Most writings were. But someone remembered the story, and that's enough. A whisper carried forward through time. You think of that now, as you sit back and let the fountain speak to you. Its song is simple: drip, ripple, hush, hush, hush. Even the oil lamps seem to flicker in time with it. At the edge of the room, a young boy tries to mimic the sound of the fountain by tapping pebbles together. His parents look on with lazy amusement. Tap, tap, then pause. He adjusts his timing. Tap, tap. Wait, he's not looking for praise. He's just playing, intuitively sensing that this place welcomes soft creativity. In your own palm, you still hold one of the stones from earlier. It's not deliberate, you simply never returned it to the pouch. You roll it gently in your hand now. It feels cooler in this room, cooled by the water's breath. You dip it into the fountain and watch as the ripples expand, wide and slow. The Pebbles' splash is small, but it echoes gently across the chamber like the exhale of a sleeping hill. And here, again, comes that quiet wonder. Why did these traditions stop? Why don't we build rooms just for listening anymore? Scholars debate this, of course. Some say the fall of the Western Empire led to the decline of such public spaces. Others argue that the baths became associated with excess and were slowly forgotten as simpler lifestyles emerged. But none of them can quite explain how something so gentle simply faded. Still, the echoes remain. In quiet cafes, in gardens with wind chimes, in the soft hush of a library. Wherever people gather in peace, the ancient whisper of bathhouse water lives on. You rise slowly and walk along the edge of the pool, taking in the mosaics underfoot. They aren't perfect. Some tiles have loosened with time, but their designs remain. Dolphins again, and shells, and the delicate arms of anemones curling toward the sea. In one corner, a musician sits with a lyre. He doesn't play, not exactly. He plucks single notes now and then, letting them hover in the warm air like drifting feathers. You stop, just for a moment, to absorb the sound. Plink. Silence. Plink, plink. He smiles to himself, then sets the lyre down. In this room, even the notes don't rush. You return to the fountain and sit once more. The stone beneath you holds the memory of the sun. A dog trots lazily through the open doorway and curls up nearby, as if he too knows the music here is meant for resting. And then, just as you close your eyes again, a new sound joins the others. A single clack, as someone places a pebble onto marble, starting a new pattern in the stillness. One more voice in the lullaby. You linger at the edge of the fountain room for just a breath longer, listening to the steady drip, the occasional clink of a pebble, the soft padding of bare feet. It all feels like a lullaby the walls have memorized. Then you move on, following a corridor lit by low-burning lamps. The air here thickens slightly with warmth, the walls narrowing and guiding you like a gentle current. The hum of soft laughter floats toward you light, meandering, harmless. The kind of laughter shared between old friends or two strangers equally delighted by the same small, silly thing. The room you enter is shaped like a shallow crescent, and the atmosphere within is unmistakably easy. Not formal, not sacred just, perfectly unhurried. Reclining benches curve along the walls, where bathers lounge in various stages of relaxation, some with their eyes closed, others with figs or dates in hand, a few just listening. This, you realize, is the place where gossip has been distilled into its gentlest form, not the sharp kind, not cruel or fast-moving. This is bathhouse gossip soft around the edges, warm with humor, and unbothered by urgency. You ease into an empty bench, the stones surprisingly smooth, and are instantly drawn into the rolling tide of murmured conversation around you. One voice chuckles and says, "Did you hear about Tiberius? Lost his sandal in the frigidarium again. That's the third time this month." A quiet ripple of laughter follows. No judgment, just the shared amusement of a man who clearly has a lifelong habit of forgetting where he's left his footwear. Another voice pipes up. "I heard Claudia brought her dog into the caldarium. Not even a small one. A mastiff. Said he likes the steam for his joints." A woman sighs dramatically, but there's a smile in her voice. "Well, if I were her dog, I'd ask for eucalyptus too." You smile without meaning to. The words drift around you like smoke never sticking, never loud. Just passing, just soft. The kind of stories that exist only here, between linen wraps and warm walls. Someone mentions that the baker has been shaping his loaves into birds lately. Swans and sparrows, even a peacock. I swear I saw one flap its crust. Laughter again. A low, friendly wave. This kind of gentle humor has always thrived in places like this. Even back in the Republic, there were notes scratched into marble benches with harmless jests. Beware the man who bathes too long, he may become a raisin. Or, this stone is warmer than the Senate. Light, human, real. In your hand, a fig has appeared offered by a passing attendant on a simple terracotta dish. You bite into it, sweet, tender, with a slight crunch of seeds. It's perfect. The taste lingers, and for a moment, so does a smile. It's curious, really, how such simple spaces hosted such enduring rituals. Not rituals of worship or warfare, but of companionship, daily check-ins, light teasing, the sharing of everyday oddities over steam and stone. No one here is performing. No one needs to impress. The man next to you is discussing the mystery of a neighbor's olive tree, how it blooms early every year. No one's touched it in decades, he says, as if revealing a family legend. The woman beside him offers a theory. Maybe it hears the songs from the library at night. She says it like a joke, but you catch the flicker of wonder in her eyes. And just like that, the line between whimsy and truth fades. You imagine that tree now, bathed in starlight, rooted beside scrolls and whispered words. And perhaps, just perhaps, it does bloom for the poetry. It's the kind of thought that would sound absurd anywhere else. But here, inside this world of flickering oil lamps and gentle steam, it makes sense, total sense. Nearby, a child is telling a story about a turtle she saw with a marble-colored shell. It matched the bath exactly, she insists, wide-eyed. I thought it was a statue until it blinked. Her mother smiles and nods. Maybe it is a statue, one that just chooses to move sometimes. And so the child nods, satisfied. You think of your own pebble from earlier, the one you dipped in the fountain. It's in your wrap now, tucked away like a memory. You roll it between your fingers once more. Smooth, cool, present. Across the room, a man clears his throat and begins reciting lines of an old poem. It isn't grand or performative, just a few short verses repeated like a nursery rhyme. Stone and steam, hands and flame. Time forgets, but we remain. Someone murmurs approval. Someone else hums along. There's a strange magic here, shared calm, sustained by the slowness of thought and the softness of voices. Nothing is demanded, nothing is expected. And yet, everything here feels realer than the world outside. You lean back. Your muscles, already loosened by warmth, now sink deeper into ease. You think of a historian animus, likely a scribe who once wrote, "The true measure of Rome is not in her arches or armies, but in the spaces where her people forgot the need to speak loudly." This, surely, was one of those spaces. And you're part of it now. A woman near the arch is trying to balance a single pebble atop her fig. Her friend watches intently. When it topples off and rolls away, they both laugh softly, as though it were the punchline of an old favorite joke. Then, silence again. Not awkward, just complete. As if the room has taken a breath and is exhaling slowly, letting itself rest once more. Outside, you imagine the world spins. Markets close, lanterns are lit, dust settles, but in here time turns liquid and words become the soft ripples left behind. You close your eyes, holding your pebble gently in your palm. It no longer feels like an object, more like a pause made solid, a moment you can hold without disturbing it. Around you, the room continues, voices low, laughter soft, the music of everyday people moving through a space made sacred by simplicity. And you, still, without moving, are part of the story. You open your eyes slowly, no rush. The room hasn't changed much, just the light. It's dimmer now, as though the oil lamps have exhaled a little. Their glow feels thicker, more golden, casting longer shadows that stretch across the damp floor like vines. You're not quite sure how long you've sat here listening. The whispers and warm figs, the quiet humor, they've folded time into something that feels more like honey than ours. You rise with a deep breath, your joints loose, your body lighter than when you first entered. And as you move toward the far archway, you feel the familiar tug of curiosity. Not urgent, not sharp. Just a gentle nudge, like a breeze through linen curtains. It leads you into a narrow corridor again, this one lined with tiny, glowing mosaics along the base of the wall. You glance down and realize each one tells part of a storiesome old myth, perhaps. You catch glimpses as you walk. A dolphin lifting a boy from the sea. A nymph dancing with olive branches in her hair. A small creature, perhaps a hedgehog, offering a pebble to a sleeping god. And then the floor opens beneath your steps into a soft pool of color. You've entered the mosaic room. The floor is an endless quilt of stone, laid out in swirling patterns, spirals within spirals. Endless tessellations, stars nestled in circles, each piece no larger than a fingernail. The colors are muted with age: ochre, deep green, faded sapphire, dusty plum, but they still hold a quiet brilliance, especially under the lamplight. You step lightly, unwilling to disturb them, even though they are stone. There are no benches here, no pools, just floor and walls, both blooming with pattern. You crouch and run your fingers across a tiny square of tile. It's smooth, yet the edges are slightly raised. Each piece has been placed with the kind of care one usually reserves for something sacred. The air in this room is cooler, still warm, but not as steamy as before. A kind of pause in the rhythm. You hear only the soft brush of others' feet moving along the edge, and now and then, a whisper as someone spots a shape in the floor. Is that a laurel leaf or a fishtail? No. Look. Again, it's a horse's mane. The mosaics here don't just decorate. They invite reflection. You follow a curve of color toward the center of the room, where a round design blossoms like a sunflower. At the very heart, embedded in gold tesserae, is a depiction of a single hand holding a pebble. You smile, of course. Even here, the humble pebble has found its way into the stone stories. You imagine the artist perhaps hunched over, centuries ago, sweating gently, placing each piece with tweezers and intuition. Maybe they too sat in the tepidarium before beginning, soaking their fingers until nimble. Maybe they chose the pebble hand as a wink to the bathers who would one day tread across this very spot. And maybe no one noticed it at first. But someone always does. Someone like you. Another bather walks nearby, eyes downcast, following the paths in the tile like a map to nowhere. This part here, she says softly to her companion, looks like a star chart. The other squints. Or a recipe. Maybe for something the kitchens forgot. The notion of a secret recipe hidden in mosaic makes you chuckle quietly. And why not? After all, this space was built with more than practicality in mind. It was built for slow wonder, for letting your eyes wander without purpose, for walking not towards something, but within something. The walls, too, are covered in patterns, some geometric, others more organic. Sea creatures swim toward the ceiling. Vines curl around archways. Every surface holds a story, yet none of it demands interpretation. You are allowed to just see. And once again, the pebbles return. You notice now that many of the patterns mimic the shapes you've seen bathers making with their stona spirals, constellations, rings within rings. The tile work was likely inspired by them, or perhaps it was the other way around. Which came first? No one knows. Scholars still wonder if these bath mosaics were purely decorative or part of a meditative practice. Some believe priests once stood in the center, reading omens from the lines. Others say lovers met here, tracing their hopes in stone. But most agree it was meant for slowness, for the kind of seeing that only happens when you've left behind the urgency of doing. You pause at a small, square, corner pattern. 3 stones set in a row, then one off to the side. A mistake? An artist's signature? A message? You sit quietly, tracing the shape with your fingertip. It reminds you of the child's pebblefish, of the star you built earlier, of all the small arrangements made and unmade across this bathhouse, each one a fleeting constellation of presence. And you begin to understand these mosaics are not just art, they are echoes. Echoes of countless tiny moments when someone set down a stone and chose to be still. A bather walks past, humming softly. The tune is unfamiliar, but simple, just 3 notes. You let it sink in as you continue your slow circuit around the room. At one edge of the mosaic floor, a man is arranging his sandals and robe, preparing to move to the next chamber. He pauses and drops something, a small clatter, a pebble. He picks it up, looks at it, then after a moment places it gently on the corner of the mosaic. No one else notices, but you do. And as you watch the little stone sit there, tiny and still, in the middle of all this quiet pattern, you feel the whole room exhale again, as if the stone was always meant to be there. You follow the last swirling line of tile back to the door, pausing just once to look over your shoulder. The hand in the center mosaic still holds its pebble, still offering it. You touch the stone in your own wrap once more. It feels a little warmer now, or maybe you do. The room beyond calls with a fresh scent pine, cedar, and with it, the soft promise of another rhythm, another quiet joy. You step out slowly, the image of the pebble hand lingering in your thoughts like the fading notes of a lullaby. The corridor you step into now feels narrower, more intimate, like a whispered thought between rooms. The lanterns here are fewer, their light softer. Shadows puddle in the corners, but not in a way that feels eerie. It's more like they're resting, waiting, patient as sleep. The warmth deepens. You breathe in, and the air is heady with something ancient. The mingled sense of cedarwood, crushed herbs, and warm stone. It clings gently to your skin. Not overpowering, just present. As you move forward, the passageway opens again, this time into a chamber, not much larger than the mosaic room, but different in tone. The ceiling here is lower, the acoustics muffled, the light shaded and golden. And scattered throughout are bathers sitting quietly, each with a small leather pouch nestled near them. You find a bench and settle in. It doesn't take long to realize what's happening here. It's subtle, not announced, not ceremonial, just personal. Each guest is reaching into their pouch and drawing out pebbles, one at a time. You watch a man hold his between thumb and forefinger, inspecting it closely, as if reacquainting himself with an old friend. He doesn't rush. He simply observes the surface, runs it along the lines of his palm, and then sets it down beside him. The woman across from him does the same, her stones spread across her linen wrap in a tidy little arc, One is striped like a tiger's eye, another shaped like a crescent moon. She touches them gently, then smiles to herself, like she's just remembered something that happened a long time ago. Personal tokens? That's what these pebbles are. Not just for play, not even just for pattern, but for memory. You reach for your own pouch, the one from earlier, and open it slowly. The pebbles within feel slightly warmer now, carried with you through the mosaic room, through conversations, through steam and quiet laughter. Each one has become, in its way, a chapter. You roll them out, one by one. The small green one, smooth and glossy. The chalk white one with a tiny nick along one edge. The dark, oval one that feels like a worry stone. You place them in a line on the warm marble, then pause. This isn't about arranging. Not anymore. It's about remembering. Romans loved small objects. They often carried lucky charms or amulets, bits of bone, carved wood, coins rubbed smooth by anxious fingers, but here in the bathhouse, it seems pebbles filled that role. Chosen not for their magic, but for their familiarity. One account mentions a bath steward who recognized regulars by their pebbles alone. "Ah, the striped one," he'd say, "belongs to Lucius, always places it left of center." It's possible, of course, that some of these pebbles came from meaningful Placesa River where someone fell in love, a hilltop where a traveler once rested, a garden where laughter lingered, but no one asks. The meaning is in the holding, not the telling. You cup one of your own stones in your palm and close your eyes. You remember the fountain's sound, the fig's sweetness, the mosaic's sunflower, the soft chuckle at someone's missing sandal, all of it held quietly in this small worn pebble. Across the room, a child is placing her stones in pairs, matching color and size. Her father watches with a contented nod, letting her work. He doesn't interfere. Then she does something curious. She trades one with him. He smiles and gives her another in return. A silent exchange. No rules, no spoken reason. Just the gentle act of sharing something small, something carried. You wonder how many pebbles in this room have been traded over time, given in thanks, swapped in friendship, perhaps even left behind intentionally, like small offerings of stillness. You pick up one of yours, the dark, oval one, and slide it just a little further from the others. Not to forget it, but to acknowledge it. Then you turn your attention to the bench beside you. Someone has left behind a pebble there, pale yellow, nearly translucent. It's warm from the stone, and when you touch it, it almost hums in your hand. You don't take it. You just know it's not meant to be taken. Instead, you place one of your own beside it, the chalky white one. A quiet exchange. Not because you needed to, just because the moment asked for it. The air around you grows even warmer now, more fragrant. A steward enters quietly, bearing a tray of infused oil-small ceramic pots, each giving off a faint trail of scent, myrrh, basil, rosemary, and something softer, like pressed violets under sun-warmed cloth. He doesn't speak, just moves silently among the bathers, offering the jars. Some decline with a smile, others accept with a nod, dabbing the oils lightly on their wrists, temples, or chest. You choose one at random. The clay pot is smooth and cool, the oil within rich with lavender and a whisper of sweet pine. You press a small drop behind your ear, then one over your heart. The scent blooms slowly, warm and comforting, like sunlight on pages, like linen left out to dry in an orchard. You sit back, letting the aroma settle over your breath, your thoughts, your stones. And for a long moment, you feel completely still. Not empty, not absent, just still. A man across from you places a pebble in the crook of the wall before leaving. It fits perfectly, as if it had been waiting for centuries to rest there. No one speaks, but everyone notices. Another guest folds his wrap and presses one stone between the layers. His companion watches, then does the same. Little rituals, repeated without ceremony. They aren't written down. They aren't explained. But somehow, everyone knows them. You gather the rest of your stones, gently, carefully, as though they've grown heavier with meaning. You return them to the pouch, except for one, the green, glassy one. That one you hold a moment longer. Then you place it on the ledge beside you. Not in a pattern, not with intention. Just there. For whoever comes next. You rise. Not because you're done. Just because you're ready for whatever quiet waits in the next room. The corridor you step into now feels different, not colder exactly, but expectant, like the air just before a rain. It narrows gently, and the light here is bluish, diffused. The heat from earlier rooms thins into a subtle chill that brushes across your arms like a whispered dare. The scent changes to sharper now, with a faint mineral tang. You recognize it before you see it, the frigidarium. The cold plunge. You slow your steps. Everyone does. It's not a room you rush into. It's a pause before the plunge. And then you're there. The ceiling opens up again, high and domed, painted in faded blue, with flecks of stars that have softened over centuries. The pool at the center is carved deep into the stone, square-edged and dark as ink. Mist clings above the surface, and the water glows faintly with the reflection of oil lamps set into niches in the walls. A few bathers sit at the edge, legs in the water, arms resting on knees. Others are submerged up to their shoulders, still as statues. No one speaks. No one needs to. The chill draws inward whatever is still restless. You stand quietly, just observing. The room hums in its own way, not with sound, but sensation. The crispness of the air, the tension before contact, the low exhale of someone settling into cold. You approach the edge of the pool. Your feet meet the marble step, and the stone is cool, startling in contrast to the warm chambers before. You pause, and the silence around you seems to deepen. Then you step in. First one foot, then the other. Ankles, calves, knees. The cold climbs like a slow tide. Your breath catches not in fear, not in pain, just in awareness. You feel every nerve sharpen, like the first breath of a winter morning. The water reaches your waist, your chest, and then you sink, slowly, fully. You are underwater. Still, sound fades completely. All that remains is the thrum of your own heart and the distant memory of warmth. You break the surface with a calm gasp. Not a shiver, not quite. It's more like your body remembering something ancient. Resolve, simplicity, bravery, but quiet. Cold water clears the mind in a way warmth never quite can. And the Romans knew this. They believed the frigidarium was more than a cleansing, it was a returning, a way to feel new again, not just rinsed, but realigned. Across the pool, a woman lowers herself into the water with the same grace. Her fingers tremble slightly at first, then relax. A man near the corner exhales through his nose, eyes closed. No one is in a hurry. The walls here are undecorated, but not bare. The simplicity feels intentional. It lets you focus on the sensation, the press of water against your skin, the stillness it demands. There are no pebbles here. They'd be out of place in the cold. But you remember them, the pouch, the green one you left behind, and you feel a kind of soft completeness. That part of the story paused, so this one could begin. Some say soldiers favored the frigidarium before campaigns, that it steeled their bodies, cleared the fog of fear. Others say scholars came here after long readings, letting the cold sweep away unnecessary thoughts, leaving only what mattered. No one knows if that's true. But standing here, submerged to your shoulders, you believe it might be. A man across from you dips beneath the surface. He stays under for only a few seconds, then rises with a calm, deep breath. No splash, just a ripple. You decide to try. You take a breath, close your eyes, and slip below. The cold becomes a cradle. Not biting, not cruel, just whole. You listen not with ears, but with your skin, your bones. You hear the memory of the fountain, the whisper of the pebble placed on warm marble, the fig's sweet sigh. And then, silence again. When you rise, the world feels reset, sharpened and softened at once. You lean against the edge of the pool, arms resting, the cold now manageable. Even welcome. Your skin tingles. Your breath has found a new rhythm. You look around, noticing how the others seem to mirror this feeling. No chatter, no tension, just quiet faces, still shoulders, eyes focused on nothing in particular. It's remarkable how quiet resolve can be. And still, despite the chill, there is no urgency to leave. Someone begins to hum a deep single-note melody that seems to rise from the stones themselves. You can't tell who it is. Perhaps it's more than one voice. Perhaps it's just the vibration of the place. The sound doesn't fill the room. It lingers just above the water, like mist. The stars painted on the dome above seem brighter now, as if stirred by breath. Scholars still wonder why the frigidarium was not feared, but loved. Why so many wrote about the joy of the cold, the stillness of the water, the comfort found in clarity. Some say it was because life in ancient Rome was loud, fast, filled with spectacle. But here, submerged, time froze in the best way. Long enough to remember what being felt like. You dip your hands in the water again and raise them to your face. The drops cling to your eyelashes, your chin. They feel like mountain rain, like sea spray, like the exact opposite of everything chaotic. And in that contrast, there is peace. Eventually, you step out. Slowly, deliberately. Your feet touch the dry stone with gratitude. The air feels warmer again, your skin tingles with returning heat, your senses open and clear. An attendant hands you a linen towel, thick and gently scented with rosemary. You wrap it around yourself, your body almost glowing from the inside out. You look back at the pool once more. The surface is smooth again. The stars still shine. The silence still holds. And you step forward clean, calmed, and quietly whole. The towel wraps around you like a quiet reassurance, still warm from the folds of another guest, before you one more layer of this bathhouse's memory pressed softly against your skin. You walk now through a transitional passage, and the air shifts once more. There's no rush. The pace of your steps has softened to match the rhythm of the space. Each moment unfolds without urgency, and in this particular corridor, the scent of herbs returns. But this time, it's different. Stronger, earthier. You breathe in, and you're met with layers, pine resin, crushed lavender, the spiced sweetness of myrrh, and something distant like the dark green of a cypress tree after rainfall. The walls here are lined with ceramic jars, each labeled in gentle Latin script, each containing a fragrant oil or balm or infusion prepared with care. A steward nods to you as you pass, holding a fresh bundle of rosemary and sage, still damp from rinsing, their scent following him like a trail of forest wind. He places the bundle into a clay bowl nestled near a vent. You can see the steam already rising from it, slow and steady. You step into the next chamber, and it welcomes you like a home you didn't know you missed. The light is low again, more golden than blue, and the air is heavy with moisture. This is the anointing room, a place not for bathing, but for preparation and pause. A few guests recline on low benches, their towels loosened slightly, their skin glistening faintly under the light. Attendants move with unhurried grace, carrying small bowls of oil, each one warmed over a tiny lamp. They offer them quietly. There's no pressure, no ritual chant, just the gentle rhythm of offering, accepting, applying. You sit, and soon an attendant approaches an older man with kind eyes and hands that seem to know time differently. He doesn't speak, but holds out a ceramic pot of oil for you to smell. It's subtle lavender with a whisper of cypress. You nod, and he begins. First, your shoulders. His hands are strong but gentle, the oil warm, smoothing into your skin like sunlight filtered through green leaves. Then your arms, your back. The tension that still remained from before the little knots and edges dissolves quietly under his touch. It's not a massage in the modern sense, more like a ritual of recognition. The body, noticed. The body, honored. The oil sinks into your skin slowly. The scent becomes part of your breath. A second attendant brings a warmed cloth soaked in thyme and orange blossom water. She lays it across your chest, and you feel a blooming sensation, as if the herbs are speaking, not loudly, just enough for your skin to listen. Others nearby are receiving the same care. One woman is anointed with myrrh and laurel, her head bowed slightly, eyes closed in what seems to be prayer but softer. Not to a god, just to herself. A boy, perhaps no older than tennis, wrapped like a small statue, his cheeks glowing. His grandmother pats his shoulder with oil-streaked fingers, whispering something too quiet to hear. This isn't cleansing. It's remembering. You wonder, briefly, how often the Romans did this. Once a week? Every day? Some sources suggest wealthier citizens visited the baths daily, but others came when they needed them, not for hygiene. Not to see others, but to feel seen. And what better way than through warm oil, through herb-scented cloth, through quiet hands. You remember your pebble again, the green one you left behind. It would feel cool now, kissed by the frigidarium's ghost. You imagine it resting on a marble bench, catching the scent of lavender in the air, still carrying your fingerprint on its polished surface. You wonder who might find it. A child? A philosopher? Someone not yet tired? It doesn't matter. The story continues. Another bowl of oil is offered. This one smells of juniper and honey. You smile and decline with a small nod. You are full. Not in body, in presence. The attendant bows once, then leaves the bowl on a ledge in case you change your mind. You notice now how the room pulses with layers of aroma, not one overpowering the other. Just waves. A blend of nature and memory. Romans were precise in their oils. They believed in balance not just of body and scent, but of emotion. Lavender to calm, sage to clear, myrrh to anchor, laurel to invigorate. Even pine for courage. And somewhere in this room, all of those feelings drift, faint and kind. A man reclines near the wall, gently rubbing oil into his hands. When he finishes, he sets a single stone flat and speckled onto the ledge beside him. Then he leaves. Not a word spoken. Just a mark left. Another quiet ritual. Scholars still wonder why such simple acts were lost, why our modern world turned oils into commodities, into products, into rushed steps, in rushed routines. But here now they are stories, pauses, a form of touch that speaks without noise. And you, sitting still, feel the language of it sinking deeper. The warmth of your skin, the rhythm of your breath, the way your shoulders no longer reach toward your ears, the way your hands rest more easily on your lap. You look down and notice something small on the floor beside you. A pebble. Round, cream-colored, tiny as a fingernail. Had it been there before? Maybe. Maybe it rolled from someone else's pouch. Or maybe it's yours, following you like a memory made tangible. You pick it up. It's cool, familiar. You turn it over in your hand once, twice, then press it into your palm and let it rest there. Not for a reason. Just because it wants to be held. You rise, slowly, as another attendant enters carrying a new bowl of warm oil, this one fragrant with rosemary and a hint of clove. Behind you, the soft hum of breath and aroma continues. Ahead, the air thickens once more. A warmer chamber waits. Not louder, not brighter, just further along the winding river of rest. You walk now with a soft weight of oil still clinging to your skin, the scents of rosemary and lavender drifting like gentle ghosts in your breath. The corridor ahead curves gently, as if the bathhouse itself is leading you deeper into some sacred stillness, some space where even thoughts tread quietly. The warmth returns gradually like the memory of a sunbeam finding its way back to your shoulder. As you step forward, the light changes again, softer, richer. You enter a chamber where the air feels heavier, not oppressive, but immersive. This is the caldarium, the hot room. Steam billows and curls from vents in the floor and walls, forming soft clouds that shift and swirl without a sound. The walls are glazed with moisture, glistening like dewy leaves at dawn. The ceiling is domed, high, almost hidden in the mist, and somewhere above, the faint outline of a painted sky watches over the room like an old friend. You breathe in deeply. The air tastes of eucalyptus and thyme, carried gently on waves of warmth. Every breath soothes your throat and softens your chest. It's a different kind of heat here, not dry or punishing, but alive, enveloping, persuasive. You step forward, and the tiles beneath your feet are slick, warm, and dappled with puddles where steam has kissed the stone. Bathers are seated on low marble benches around the perimeter, each one wrapped in linen, each one very quiet. It's not a silence of rules, it's a silence of choice. This room does not ask for conversation, but now and then, someone speaks, and when they do, it's soft and thoughtful. Words drift like steam, philosophical whispers among the rising mist. You take your place on a low bench, the warmth soaking through the cloth and into your muscles. You sit still, let your spine soften, your face relax. The heat is deeper here, more internal. It invites not just rest, but reflection. To your left, an older man leans back with his eyes closed, speaking slowly, almost to himself. Fortune is not a wheel, he murmurs. It is a tide. You float until you don't. Someone nearby chuckles softly, and then you swim, or sink, or drift, says a third voice, younger. There's no debate, just an exchange of ideas, not to win, but to pass time with depth and grace. This was a common feature of Roman baths, not just relaxation, but quiet intellectual companionship. No forum, no courtroom, just warmth and wandering thought. You listen as the conversation drifts. Do you think the gods bathe? They don't need to. Then what a pity. They'll never know this. Laughter this time quiet, kind. A man near the opposite wall rearranges his towel and says, "I brought a pebble today that looks like a grain of wheat." He pulls it from a fold in his wrap and shows it. No one leans forward. They just glance. One person nods and says, "Then perhaps it will grow." You feel the small pebble in your own wrap. It's there, warm now, tucked safely near your ribs. You don't reach for it. You just know it's part of this moment. Someone speaks of a bird they saw earlier in the garden, bright yellow, with a song like a flute. It sounded like it was asking a question. Maybe it was. The steam thickens slightly, and with it, the room seems to sigh. The heat isn't status, it pulses gently, drawn from deep stone furnaces below. Ancient engineers called them hypocausts, and they fed warmth beneath the floors, letting it rise through gaps in the walls. Genius, yes, but also gentle, thoughtful. Not fire for fire's sake, but fire tempered into comfort. You lean back against the marble, its surface hot but forgiving, and close your eyes. For a long while, you don't think. Not in words, anyway. Your thoughts become more like images. Water, pebbles, hands moving slowly across a bench, the warmth of oil against skin, the steady whisper of the frigidarium. A fig, opened in half, resting like an offering. Time slows even further. A voice beside you breaks the silence again, not to speak, but to recite. A poem, maybe, or just a series of thoughts stitched together gently. Stone does not hurry. Steam does not argue. The body remembers. What the mind sets down. You don't ask who said it. No one does. Some things just arrive, like steam from stone. You open your eyes briefly and watch the way the mist swirls around the ceiling. You think it must look like this in the mountains after rain, like the sky fell for a moment just to rest. Scholars still wonder how long Romans sat in these chambers. Some say only a few minutes, just enough to sweat out the heat and then move on. Others claim the caldarium was a place for extended rest, for dreaming, for decisions whispered to the air. Perhaps it varied, as all things should. You stand slowly and stretch, every joint fluid now, every movement softened. The towel sticks gently to your back, damp with heat and memory. You walk to the basin near the wall. A copper bowl sits beside a wide marble shelf, and within it, cool water. You dip your hands, splash your face. The contrast is electric, alive. Like the frigidarium, but gentler, like being kissed awake instead of stirred. Around the room, more pebbles appear, left casually on ledges, pressed into corners, tucked into towel folds. You find one on the basin ledge, a tiny gray stone, with a thin white line across the center, like a horizon. You trace it with your thumb and smile, then you set it back where it was. Not yours to take, but certainly yours to notice. The air continues to rise in soft breaths. Steam, thought, warmth, stillness. You feel like you could sit here for hours or minutes and never be quite sure which passed. Eventually, you return to the bench. Not to talk, not to listen, just to be. You lean your head back against the warm stone. The sounds around you dissolve into something deeper than silence, and so you rest. You stay seated in the caldarium for a while longer, lulled into a state where time no longer has corners or edges. The warmth, the mist, the slow rhythm of quiet voice, everything has dissolved into something you might call peace. Eventually, your body asks you to move not loudly, not impatiently, just gently. You rise, the linen wrap slightly damp, clinging like a second skin. The marble beneath your feet is warm and wet, but familiar now. Friendly, even. You step into a narrow hall leading out from the caldarium. This one is cooler, lined with torches. The air tastes of beeswax and wood smoke. The stone walls feel close, like they've been listening for centuries. You pass a statue, perhaps Minerva, or a Museand as the light flickers. Her face seems to shift slightly, not changing expression, but growing thoughtful. You turn a corner, and the air changes again. There's something dry here. Paper, dust, and sandalwood. Faint, but unmistakable. The hallway widens and, suddenly, you're no longer in a bathhouse. You're in a library, attached to the baths, but not noisy. Not public in the same way. It's a side chamber, quiet and tucked away. A room of scrolls and silence. The transition feels natural, though, as though thought itself flowed here from the heat and steam before. You step inside, and it welcomes you with the hush of old things. Scrolls line the walls, stacked in wooden cubbies. Some are bound with red ribbon, others with string faded to white. Low benches line the perimeter, and in the center, a table with a half-finished cup of tea, still faintly steaming. Someone was here recently, or perhaps still is. The oil lamps glow low here, the light warm and kind. You can see the edges of scrolls curling slightly in the humidity, like flowers bowing to sleep. You move toward one of the walls, fingers tracing the names scratched into the wooden dividers. Pliny, Seneca, Virgil, Varro. None of them shout. Their names are simply there, waiting. You take a seat near a low window where natural light filters in, gray and quiet like cloud light. On the bench beside you sits a scroll already opened. You don't open it further right away. You run your fingers across the papyrus first, feeling the textures lightly brittle, slightly soft. It smells like ink and stories. Then you read. It isn't philosophy, not today. It's a collection of natural observations notes about birds and trees and the habits of bees. The author writes of watching a beehive for 3 days, noting how they return always to the same fig tree, even after it's been pruned. Do they remember the shade? He writes. Or simply the scent? You smile at that. You've asked similar questions today. Another scroll, this one tucked into a small niche, is unrolled halfway. It's a list, a simple one. Hours of sunrise in different months. Locations of the warmest stones. A recipe for preserved olives. A note. Don't forget the pebble gay mask Gaius for his pattern. You close your eyes and let that one settle in. Even here, among scrolls and tea and softly breathing paper, the pebbles remain, present, inviting. You open your pouch again and run your thumb along the familiar stone inside the green one with the smooth, dappled surface. You place it gently on the bench beside you, not as an offering, but as a bookmark in time. Perhaps someone else will sit here and find it, or perhaps the library itself will hold on to it like a secret. Across the room, someone turns a page. You glance up and see a young woman with a soft linen shawl wrapped around her shoulders, eyes steady on a scroll, lips moving faintly, reading aloud to herself. You can't hear the words, but you can feel them. There's something whimsical in this quiet collection of knowledge and softness. One scroll contains weather records written by someone with poetic leanings. Today the wind moved like a horsefast, proud, not unkind. Yesterday, the olive trees gossiped. I refused to listen. Tomorrow, I expect silence. You imagine the scribe chuckling as he wrote that, warm fingers stained with ink and wrapped around a cup of honey wine. You close the scroll with care and return it to its place. The library is small, but endless. You could stay for hours, or just minutes. There's no pressure. The scrolls will wait. You pause at the center table where that unfinished cup still sits. A pebble rests beside it, small, amber-colored, chipped slightly at one edge. It seems to say, "I'll be back." Or maybe, "I've already read this one." You breathe in deeply. The air here is layered parchment, oil, soft herbs from the room before, all of it bound together by quiet thought. And again, you wonder. Scholars still wonder why libraries were so often paired with Roman baths. Perhaps it was about balance, body and mind. Or maybe the baths opened people just enough to listen. Not just to each other, but to themselves. The scrolls didn't need to teach. They simply offered company in silence. You look back once before leaving. The window now lets in light touched with gold. A sign that somewhere above, the sun is folding its arms for the day. The girl with the linen shawl has set her scroll aside and is now staring out the window, her pebble resting in her palm, unmoving. You leave your own stone behind on the bench next to the one you found there and walk out with hands empty but heart full. And just as the air warms again, you hear a faint sound behind you. The soft clink of pebble on wood. The warmth greets you again, not as a surprise this time, but as a return to something known. You step back through the corridor, leaving the hush of the library behind, like the closing of a well-loved book. The scent of aged scrolls lingers faintly on your linen wrap, now mingling with the softened echoes of lavender oil, thyme water, and clean skin. You feel as if you're being slowly wrapped in memory, carried along on the gentle current of the bathhouse itself. The corridor leads you through another low arch, and suddenly the air changes once more, brighter, drier, clearer. You're in a small anteroom with a bronze mirror mounted on the wall. At first, it seems plain, unassuming. Just a round disc, slightly tarnished, set into a carved frame of olive wood. But as you step closer, you see yourself reflected not perfectly, not sharply, but softened. The metal isn't glass smooth. It gives your features a haze, as though you are made of candlelight. You lean in slightly, and there you are, but calmer, slower, as if the day has peeled away every extra layer you carried with you. The folds of your linen wrap, the glisten of oil on your skin, the soft shadows beneath your eyes. You move your hand, and your reflection follows not immediately, but just behind the motion. The bronze holds time a little longer than expected. You're not sure if it's the mirror, or you, or both. It's a small moment, but something about it makes you pause. There is no rush here, no loud vanity, just a quiet reflection in every sense of the word. You sit on the bench nearby, still watching yourself. Someone else enters the room, a young man with damp curls, carrying a shallow bowl of water. He doesn't glance at the mirror, but sets the bowl down with great care. Inside are 3 pebbles. He dips his fingers in, touches each stone lightly, then nods to himself and leaves. The pebbles remain. You lean forward and look into the water. The reflection is clearer here, though the ripples make it dance. You can just make out the shape of the 3 pebbles at the bottom. One shaped like a small mountain. One striped in 2 tones, light and dark. One nearly translucent, glowing faintly under the surface. You wonder, what did they mean to him? Were they symbols, choices, memories? You reach into your wrap and take out your last pebble, the green one, the one you didn't leave behind in the mosaic room or the pebble chamber or on the bench beside the scrolls. You hold it now and consider it. Then, Slowly, you lower it into the bowl. It lands with a tiny splash, a hush, and the ripples fold outward, pushing gently against the reflections of the others. And there they are, 4 pebbles, each one part of a moment you've lived today. Someone behind you shifts on the bench, and you see their reflection join yours in the mirror. Neither of you speak, but your eyes meet in the bronzes softly, briefly. A nod is exchanged, a shared silence. You turn back to the mirror, now fogged slightly at the edges from the warmth of the bathhouse seeping in. Your features blur further, but somehow the image feels truer, a little less sharp, a little more like someone who's set something down. You rise, and as you do, you notice that others have left traces here too. Along the ledge beneath the mirror, small indentations have been made over time. Fingertips tracing the same spot again and again. The oil of countless hands smoothing the edge of the wood. A stone pressed into a corner, not displayed, not hidden, just there. A woman near the doorway is adjusting her wrap. She glances at the mirror, tilts her head, then walks away without looking again. You watch her go, her steps as soft as linen on water. The bronze mirror was never meant for vanity. It was meant for noticing, for seeing not what you are, but how you've arrived. And you've arrived slowly, gently, through steam and fig, oil and pebble, laughter and silence. You pass through the next archway and feel the warm light of a brazier blooming nearby. The hallway opens into another wide chamber, this one calmer still, almost empty. But before you step through, you look back once. The mirror still gleams. The bowl still ripples. Your pebble is still there dancing quietly with the others. Scholars still wonder about the purpose of bronze mirrors in Roman baths. Were they practical, decorative, or did they offer something more? A moment of internal quiet, a pause. A glance that said, "Yes, this is who you are today." You step forward, and behind you, the air shifts, the mirror reflects, and the bathhouse continues to breathe. You step into the next room with the soft sense that something has subtly shifted, not in the bathhouse itself, but in you, like the difference between a pond before and after the wind. Still water, but deeper somehow. The light here is lower again, burnished and honey-toned, filtered through open archways that lead to a small inner courtyard. Olive trees grow at the edges, their gnarled trunks leaning like wise old men, their leaves catching the breeze with a faint silver flicker. But what draws your eye are not the trees. It's the pebbles. Dozens of them, resting on ledges, tucked into corners, arranged with care on benches and windowsills, not strewn, not scattered placed, quietly, deliberately, each one its own soft sentence. You move toward a low bench under an archway. On the stone seat is a ring of pebbles perfectly round, 12 in number, each one a different shade of earth. At the center, a 13th, a milky white stone, slightly larger, with a gentle curve that gives it the shape of a sleeping eye. You sit nearby, careful not to disturb the pattern. This is the room where bathers leave behind their pebbles. A kind of closing gesture, a way of saying, "This was mine, and now I let it go." Some are left in spirals, others in lines, as if pointing somewhere. A few sit in pairs, like companions sharing a final moment of stillness before parting. No one speaks here. It's a chamber of quiet farewells, not goodbyes, but offerings. A man near one arch sets his pebble down with both hands, bowing his head slightly before standing and walking away. His face is calm, and his linen wrap catches the breeze like a sail catching just enough wind to move forward. You open your pouch one last time. 2 pebbles remain. You hold them both in your palm. One is the creamy white stone from earlier, the one you almost left in the library. The other is newer, darker, found near the mirror. One smooth, one rough. Both simple, both enough. You choose the white one, and you place it on a low wall beside a cluster of soft moss. Not in a pattern, not in a row, just there. Here. No one watches, but you sense the space around you, receive it, as if the bathhouse itself remembers. There are stories in these pebbles, though none are spoken aloud. One has a mark carved into Itan, initial, perhaps, or the symbol of a fig leaf. Another has been painted faintly, with a thin red line around its edge. Another is shaped like a tiny heart, not stylized, not exaggerated, just enough that it seems to pulse with something remembered. You wonder how many of these pebbles were carried here over years. How many were returned? How many were forgotten? Or maybe none were forgotten. Maybe they were simply placed. And what a soft ritual that is, the placing of a pebble. Nothing flashy, no announcement, just a moment, a breath. You take in the air. It smells of warm stone, green olive leaves, and the faintest trace of cedar smoke curling in from a brazier near the far wall. A child walks by, holding a handful of small pebbles. She drops one beside yours, pauses, then picks it up and moves it half an inch to the left. Satisfied, she nods and moves on. The sunlight through the courtyard shifts slightly, and a few golden leaves drift to the ground like slow feathers. You rest your hands on your knees, and sit, and breathe. It is not a place you must leave quickly. No one is ushering you forward. But you begin to feel that lovely kind of readiness, the kind that doesn't push, but invites. Scholars still wonder whether these pebble arrangements meant something specific. Were they prayers? Mementos? Simple acts of presence? One theory suggests that bathers use them like dream journals, placing their stone to capture a thought, a hope, a mood. Another says it was more like a sigh, a silent acknowledgement that today happened, and this was part of it. You like that idea? You rise slowly. The wrap around you shifts gently, still warm, still carrying the sense of earlier rooms. You take one last glance at the spot where your pebble now rests. Then you move through the arch, stepping from stone into sunlight once more. The courtyard welcomes you with a hush, a long, slow exhale of earth and time. And now, only one pebble remains in your pouch. You don't look at it yet. Not just yet. The courtyard air greets you like an old friend does if the sun waited all afternoon just to brush its warmth across your shoulders. You walk slowly now, barefoot along smooth stones dappled in light. The trees above sway gently, casting shifting shadows that dance like murmured lullabies. Olive trees, cypress, a few slender poplars line the edges of this quiet, open space. Their leaves rustle just enough to remind you the world is still turning, but not so fast that you need to catch up. There are no fountains here, no pools, just air, light, stone, and the hush of shared exhale. You pause beneath one of the larger olive trees. The bark is twisted, ancient, grooved in deep lines like the folds of a sleeping hand. Beneath it, others have gathered bathers, now fully dry, some sitting cross-legged in the sun, others reclining on low stone benches wrapped loosely in their linens. They are still, some with eyes closed, some with faces tilted toward the sky, some simply breathing. You sit nearby, feeling the sun on your skin. It's not harsh. It's the kind of warmth that arrives gently, as if knocking before it enters. You close your eyes and listen. Not for sounds, but for the space between them. There it is. The soft flap of linen in the breeze. A fig dropping from a tree. A sigh, drawn out like a bow across strings. The scratch of sandal against stone as someone shifts. A pebble being placed. Yes, even here. Someone is still arranging pebbles. You open your eyes and see an elderly man crouched near a shaded alcove in the garden wall. He has just 3 stones, one white, one black, one shaped like a teardrop. He lays them side by side, not in a line or circle, just close, almost touching. Then he sits back, folds his hands, and smiles at nothing in particular. You don't need to know the meaning. The act is the meaning. You reach into your pouch and draw out your final pebble. It's small, dark, and smooth as river glass. You turn it in your fingers. It feels warmer now, though you can't say why. Perhaps it's the sun. Perhaps it's you. You hold it loosely, not quite ready to place it. Not yet. This moment is for settling. You notice that others have left their final stones here, 2 not on ledges or benches this time, but nestled in the grass, in the soil, at the roots of trees. Some are stacked small cairns. Some rest beneath leaves. One is balanced on the curve of a snail's shell. There is no system, no signage, just presence. You walk slowly toward a curved stone bench, tucked beneath a wall draped in ivy. The vines move gently in the breeze, casting lace-like shadows across the bench. You sit. The stone is cool, but not unfriendly. You run your hand along its surface and find another pebble. Tiny, irregular, cracked on one side. It's been here for a while. You smile and place your pebble beside it, not touching, but close enough that they might recognize one another, not as companions, but as moments left behind. And as you sit back, you realize just how far you've traveled, not in distance, but in feeling. From the first quiet step into the mist of the tepidarium, to the gentle puzzle of pebbles on a bench, to the splash of the frigidarium, to the whisper of philosophy through steam, and now, here, with olive branches above you, the sun on your skin, and your final pebble placed like a signature in silence. You take a long breath. The garden smells like citrus now, and stone warmed by time. A woman walks past, her linen robe trailing softly behind her. In her hand, she carries a flat, oval pebble. She glances at your pair of stones on the bench, smiles briefly, then continues on. She doesn't take one. She doesn't add one. She just notices. And maybe that's the real ritual. Scholars still wonder if the pebble leaving at Roman baths was personal or shared, a prayer or a pause, a wish or a goodbye. Maybe it was all of these. Or maybe, simply, it was a way to say, I was here. You stand slowly, the wrap now dry, your body warm, your hands relaxed. You leave the bench behind with its 2 quiet stones and walk on toward the edge of the courtyard where soft torchlight flickers again, where the final corridor waits. Not as an end, but as a passage. Because even the longest day, the slowest breath, the softest story, must find its way home. The corridor that guides you away from the garden is narrower than the others, but not confining. It feels more like the inside of a shell, gently curving, naturally quiet. The walls are smooth, bathed in low lamplight that glows golden orange. like the last embers of a fire kept only for company, not for warmth. The olive scent lingers faintly behind you, replaced now by the clean simplicity of stone and wax. A new kind of hush wraps itself around your shoulders, not the quiet of thought, but the quiet that comes after thinking. You step lightly, your feet knowing their rhythm. The corridor opens, and you are surprised to find yourself back near the entrance atrium, but now it's empty. The pools are still, the marble benches without conversation, the lamps steady. Time seems to have stepped aside, bowing to your presence. You pause at a large urn by the wall alone you hadn't noticed before. At its base are several small arrangements of pebbles, each distinct. One is a spiral, another a crescent moon, one just a single line of 5 stones, all black, evenly spaced. You do not touch them, but you look, and looking is enough. You remember your own pebble, the final one placed in the garden, and feel the faint, grounding sensation of release. Not loss, not distance, just the peace of having offered something to stillness. You move toward the final archway. Beyond it lies the outer corridor, and past that, the cool open air of evening. But before you go, you take one last look back. The walls now glow gently, as though the stories they've held all day have begun to settle into sleep. You feel no need to linger. The bathhouse is full, but not of people. Full of gestures, of footprints, of fig-sweet air and murmured thoughts, and of pebbles tucked into corners like commas in a long, gentle sentence. You step outside, and the world has shifted just slightly. The sun has lowered into a warm haze. The lanterns along the path flicker to life, one by one, as if awakened by your footsteps. Their flames move softly in the evening breeze, drawing lazy shadows along the stone walls. You walk slowly, wrapped once more in your own thoughts. But now they feel different, looser, as if each one has found its place. Like pebbles set carefully on a ledge. A cat appears again, perhaps the same one you saw earlier. It walks ahead of you, tail upright, never looking back, but never far. And there, near the gate, you find a final touch. A single pebble resting on a stone pillar. It isn't yours, but you know what it means. Someone else walked this path before you. Someone else placed it there not for a reason, but for a rhythm. You pause, smile, and walk past it. The sky is painted in lavender and deep rose, the kind of colors that ask for silence. The wind is soft now, carrying with it the sense of nightfall dusty lavender, citrus bark, a distant trace of warm earth. Somewhere nearby, a fig drops from a tree. Somewhere far away, a scroll is unrolled. And right now, under this unfolding twilight, you feel it all. You are not tired. You are resting. A nearby lantern sways, casting its glow across your face as you take your final steps down the cobblestone path. The sound beneath your feet is steady, calm. You breathe in, and the night answers back with a breeze. And now, at the edge of this long, gentle journey, there is nothing left to do. No decisions to make. No places to be. Just this. A soft fan blowing somewhere in the distance. The hush of dusk settling into its favorite chair. And the lingering warmth of steam, stone, and silence tucked beneath your skin like a lullaby. You walk a little further. Then a little slower. Then a little slower still. And at last, you pause. Not to look back, but to close the day. Let the lamps flicker. Let the pebbles rest. Let the night carry you the rest of the way. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. and let your breath drift gently in and out. In, out, just like that. You're safe. You're still. You're home.